What I've Become. Written by Night Breeze. Read by no one and nobody. Chapter 2. Written script pranced a little as he came out of the restaurant, humming to himself as he did so. "That went a lot smoother than I expected," he thought as he briskly trotted down the road. "Now all I have to do is get flowers delivered, and I'll be set for tonight." Script honestly wanted this evening to be as special as the mare he had married. It had been 2 years now, but he still felt like a newlywed, especially whenever he saw her smiling face. As that thought crossed his mind, others soon followed. Memories of her working in her garden, of how her mane seemed to glow in celestial sunlight when they first met, all swirling in the happy stallion's brain. That's why he wanted today to be special, surprising even. It's also why he had pretended to forget their special day. Written script had the whole day planned out to the smallest detail. He would pretend to forget about today, let her think he was a forgetful plot hole, while in the meantime he got everything prepared for their big night. After all, how is it a surprise if she knew it was coming? After she had had some time to stew over his apparent lack of brains, he would have his best friend Caramel deliver the roses, along with a note, surprising her in the process. If everything went as he expected it to, she would have the best night of her life. Written script's plotting was interrupted, however, when he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was a long, drawn-out howl that was louder and more terrifying than anything he had ever heard before. It sounded similar to a wolf's, but only if this wolf was capable of making a screeching, ear-shattering scream that overlapped its usual howl. The direction of the howl, however, was a bit odd. Instead of coming from the Everfree Forest, like he expected it to, it instead seemed to be coming from the direction of Whitetail Woods, a place that every pony knew was completely safe. Written script's heart just about stopped at that point. He knew that Carrot Top liked to roam those woods when she was feeling upset or needed to think something through, and he had left her very, very upset this morning. Even as the ponies around him started screaming and running away, his brain instantly jumped to the worst-case scenario, and he started to run in the direction of Whitetail, hoping against hope that he was wrong about what had happened. I crept up to the town as silently as I could manage, fully aware of how exposed I was. I tried to keep a low profile, but it was hard, seeing how there was absolutely no cover between the forest and the town. It was also in the mid-afternoon, so I didn't exactly have the cover of night to protect me, not to mention that I pretty much stood out like a sore thumb in the looks department, or the fact that I was carrying what looked like a dead body. Other than that, I felt sneaky, all things considered, kind of like an alien ninja. Lucky for me, however, it didn't seem like very many ponies came this way, or even looked in this direction. That being said, I was able to get fairly close without being seen. And by fairly close, I mean that I reached the halfway point between the town and the forest that I had called my home for the past 6 months. Honestly, I felt like this was a little too close, especially after watching that blue Pegasus break the sound barrier every day. But after making sure no one was around, I carefully laid the poor mare on the road, satisfied with a job well done. There. She should be safe here. Now all I have to do is... I thought, but trailed off as I saw the fatal flaw in my plan. She was covered in blood. "Don't look at me like that. I didn't lay a claw on her. It just so happened that I had completely forgotten that I had just recently killed a wild pig. Naturally, as an extension to this bone-headed forgetfulness, I had also forgotten to clean up before I had taken her back to town. As a consequence of my thoughtless action, she now looked like she had just stepped out of a slaughterhouse. Now, I wasn't really sure how things went down around here, but back home, when someone showed up in town looking like a mass murderer, it usually meant jail time at the very least. Sure, it was only pig's blood, but I'd been watching this town for a while. Despite the whole magic thing, I was fairly certain that they didn't have the level of technology required to perform a blood analysis, much less a proper forensic analysis. As I thought about that, memories of history class came to mind, where people would get stoned or burned at the stake for simply being different. Imagine what they would do if they thought you were a murderer. I wasn't certain that these people would react like my ancestors would, but being this close to town was making me jumpy. Plus, I was a fairly paranoid individual, even before the alien abduction, so it wasn't too surprising that my mind was jumping to conclusions this quickly. However, I was still me, despite my paranoid frame of mind, and I had a nasty habit of putting others' needs before my own. Honestly, I had enough weighing down my conscience, so I didn't need "send an innocent to the hangman's noose" added to the list. So, being the glutton for punishment that I was, I decided to err on the side of caution. Caution for her, not for me, in case I was unclear about that. True, this would mean more pain for me, but I was already hosed as it was in the pain department. No sense in spreading that pain around if I could help it. I gulped nervously as I stood up to my full height, acutely aware of how stupid this idea was. I then threw my head back and let out the most blood-curdling shriek I've ever heard in my life. Seriously, up to this point I haven't had that much opportunity to scream all that much. Usually I would just quietly weep like a shed manly tears of awesome over an amazing life lost. Because of this, I ended up scaring the crap out of, startling myself at how freaking manly my voice was. Almost immediately, I could hear the shouts and cries of alarm. I waited a fraction of a second longer, just to ensure that some of the flying ones had seen me, then bolted for the relative safety of the forest. I just hoped that blue pony wasn't looking this way. Otherwise, I would have had zero chance to reach my cave before she caught me. Hey, I might be fast enough to catch a wild pig, but I had no illusions as to which one of us would win a race. Written script barreled around the corner just in time to see something bizarre turn and bolt towards the forest. The small amount that he could see from this distance made him think there was some kind of white, tailless dragon. Most ponies probably would have paused upon seeing something like this, but Written Script's mind was too busy worrying about Carrot Top to even consider the danger to himself. As he started to accelerate, Written slowly became aware of an orange form lying on the road in front of him. He faltered for a second, then redoubled his speed. No, he muttered under his breath as he quickly closed on his fallen wife. About 10 feet before he reached her, he froze in his tracks, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. There was so much blood. Just so much. Quickly, he dashed to her, his worst fears realized. "She's dead. Some monster has come out of the woods and brutally murdered my wife. She was breathing. She was breathing!" Written Script quickly bent down, examining his wife for injury. Other than a rather large bruise on her forehead, she seemed to be completely fine. Sighing in relief, he gently cradled her head, blissfully unaware of all the activity around him. "Thanks, Celestia," he whispered into her blood-covered mane, not even caring that he was getting covered in the sticky substance. After several seconds of this, he slowly became aware of some pony shaking his shoulder. He looked up to see the face of the local weather manager, her face a mask of concern.
"Is she?"
Written shook his head. "No, she's fine. Looks like all she got was a bump on the head, but she'll be fine," he said, his relief palpable. Rainbow Dash sighed at these words, though her expression was still one of worry.
"We should still probably get her to Ponyville Medical, just to be sure,"
she said, letting her hoof fall to the ground. Written nodded, tears of relief running down his face. Yeah. What was that thing anyway?" he asked in alarm, as he slowly levitated Carrot Top to his back.
"I don't know, but I bet you 50 bits Twilight might,"
Rainbow said, as she looked out towards the suddenly foreboding Whitetail Woods. If you're enjoying this reading, consider checking out the non-copyright infringement version available on Amazon Prime. See link in video details for more information.